The angel is already there. I just chip away until I set the angel free. In other words, he's chipping away at what is not part of the angel. And that's how we are. We don't see our beauty. We don't see our magic because we've added all these layers through our lifetime that has disguised who we really are. And then we think we have to work at changing and adding more and becoming something else. It isn't that. It's about going back to the beauty of what we were born with and who we were born as and who we were born to be. It's about uncovering who your soul or what your soul is.
Welcome to Living in the Miracle Zone. This is the place to be if you want to live in the flow of synchronicities and miracles in your everyday life. I'm your host, Marci Shimoff. I'm a #1 New York Times bestselling author, a teacher in The Secret, and the creator of the worldwide program, Your Year of Miracles. And I have spent my life studying happiness and miracles. And in this podcast, we bring to you extraordinary miracle stories that will inspire you and groundbreaking miracle tools that can show you how you can live your most miraculous life. It is my heartfelt intention that we have a fabulous time together. So welcome to the Miracle Zone. And today I am thrilled because I am joined by the phenomenal Anita Moorjani. Welcome, Anita.
Oh, thank you, Marcy. What a beautiful introduction. And I'm so happy to be here chatting with you.
Oh, I'm thrilled really to get to be here. And let me tell people a little bit about your background if they've not heard of you. You definitely will remember Anita once you hear from her today and her story. So Anita is a renowned author. She is a spiritual speaker. She's known for her transformative journey beyond the brink of death that shifted her entire perspective on life. And her best-selling memoir, Dying to Be Me, chronicles her profound journey and her miraculous healing. And Anita is a beacon of inspiration. She travels around the world sharing her insights on self-love and consciousness and the interconnectedness of all things. And I will say, I actually I didn't read Anita's book. I listened to it, which was her fabulous voice reading to me. And then a while, I felt I loved this book. This was has been one of my very favorite books ever. And I then got to meet Anita one day at our mutual friend, Dr. Sue Morter's home, doing some yoga together. You are a great walking testament to what you write about and what you speak about. And I'm always delighted when I get to be in your presence.
Oh, wow. Thank you. I feel the same way about you. It's always so lovely and uplifting to see you, whether it's online or in person. Just thank you for being such a delight and being who you are.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you. I mean, we definitely, there's such a deep, deep, sweet care and love here. And I've been so looking forward to this because, this podcast is about living a miraculous life. And you certainly write about that in Dying to Be Me, about your miraculous healing. And I would think the best place to start is for you to share, what was your life like before you had that experience, and what has it been like since then?
So that's a great question. So before I had that experience, I was somebody who was afraid of everything. I was a people pleaser. I was afraid of disapproval. I was always doing things just to win approval. I was also someone who was afraid of getting sick. I used to be someone who used to live what I thought was very healthy. But the reason I would live healthy and choose to take all my supplements and eat organic and and do wheatgrass shots was because I was really, really scared of getting sick. My mind frame, my mindset was one of, I need to avoid getting ill. And so I would make my food choices, lifestyle choices, supplement choices, everything was from a place of avoidance, of fear of illness. And then ironically, I was diagnosed with cancer. And yet I was on a so-called anti-cancer diet. It was not until I reached end stage cancer. So here's the other piece I want to tell you is that even while I was going through dealing, it was lymphoma and it spread throughout my entire lymphatic system. I dealt with it for 4 years until it reached end stage. Even when I was sick and people were wanting to help me, they were wanting to do things for me, send me food, do things for me, I would always say, no, no, it's okay. Don't take any trouble. I was such a people pleaser and so afraid of disapproval and not wanting anyone to criticize me or dislike me. I never wanted to feel like I was a burden. So even when I was sick, I would say, no, it's okay. Don't take time out of your day. I didn't even tell people how serious my illness was because I didn't want them to worry or be concerned. The only person that knew was my husband, and of course my mom, and eventually my brother found out and was shocked as to, because he doesn't live in the same country. He was shocked that I hadn't told him how serious it was, and so that was my life before. At the end of 4 years of dealing with this illness, I had tumors the size of golf balls from the base of my skull. So it was lymphatic cancer. It spread throughout my lymphatic system. So I had these tumors the size of golf balls from the base of my skull all around my neck, down into my chest, under my arms, all the way down into my abdomen. My body had stopped absorbing nutrition and I weighed about 85 pounds. My lungs were filled with fluid. My organs started to shut down. I could no longer walk because my body was not absorbing nutrition. So my muscles had atrophied. My lungs, because they were filled with fluid, I had trouble breathing and I couldn't lie flat or I would choke on my own fluid. And I was basically dying. And on February the 2nd, I didn't wake up in the morning or in the day, and I went into a coma and I was in the hospital. And the doctors told my family that my organs were now shutting down and these were my final hours. And so I had gone into a coma and but unbeknownst to everyone around me, my family was around me by this point, and were told by the doctors that I was dying and I was not going to come out of the coma. But unbeknownst to everyone around me, I left my body. And so there I was lying peacefully. My physical body was lying peacefully on the hospital bed, but I was not in my body and I felt incredible. I felt light. I felt free. I felt loved for the first time that I ever remember. Like I'd never felt this loved in my life. And it was like I was, I don't know who I was loved by. It was like I was loved by everyone and everything, like I was connected with everything. And I could almost say that the absence of fear is what felt like love. It just felt like being enveloped by love. So all the fear was gone, all the pain was gone, and I felt so powerful and light and free. And I don't recall ever feeling like this in my physical life before. And then I felt myself surrounded by other beings. I recognized some of them from this lifetime, but I didn't recognize all of them. They could have been higher beings, spirit guides, ascended masters. I didn't recognize them all, but I felt so loved. And I started to understand things that I couldn't possibly understand. I understood why it was that I had been sick. I mean, I was able to see my physical body. I was able to see my family members, but I could see beyond that as well. I could see the doctors and the nurses. I could see what people hear. I could hear what people were saying beyond the room that my body was in. Also, my dad had passed away 10 years prior to this, and I was aware of his presence there as though he was helping me, and other deceased people who I knew, like my best friend. And so there were others I recognized, and I felt that they were all there helping me. And because it was like a state of clarity where I understood why I had got sick, and I understood that I was actually a lot more powerful than I had ever been led to believe. And I understood that had I known what I now knew from this place of understanding and clarity, I never would have got sick in the first place. And so I realized also, I reached a point where I realized, and it was like it was my dad wanted me to know, that it wasn't my time, that I needed to go back. And no part of me wanted to come back to this sick and dying body. But my dad wanted me to know that now that I understood the truth of who I really was and why I had gotten sick, that if I went back, my body would heal very, very quickly. And so I'd been in the coma for 36 hours, and a lot happened, which we can unravel as we move forward. But I'm going to just forward to the point where I made the decision to come back. And the moment I made the decision, I started to come out of the coma. And the people around me were shocked that I was coming out of the coma. The doctors told my family that not to raise their hopes because I was still very, very critical, even though I was coming out of the coma. But I started to tell them things. I said, Dad is here. It's not my time. I'm going to be fine. And then I started to tell them things that the doctor had said. And I said, isn't that the doctor that said I won't make it through the night? And my husband said, he didn't say that here in the room. He said that down the hallway, 40 feet down the hallway. There's no way you could have heard that. And things like that started to transpire. And then the tumors just started to shrink. They just started to melt and shrink, and the doctors couldn't explain it. And 5 weeks after the near-death experience, they could find no trace of cancer in my body, and they let me go home from the hospital to live my life cancer-free. And that was in 2006. That was on March 9th, 2006.
Wow. Anita, I have God bumps you telling that entire story, and I'm glad it was not your time. I'm so glad it was not your time because you have helped and inspired so many people with that story. By the way, coincidentally, you said you came out of the coma 36 hours after you went in on February 2nd. That would have been February 3rd is my birthday. Yeah.
Wow.
And
I
I
celebrate.
always recognized that when when I heard the book, I thought that was my birthday that you came back.
Isn't that amazing? Because I tend to celebrate, or my husband, he does that on February 3rd. He'll always wish me a happy rebirthday,
Oh,
and then he tells our friends, and we end up going out for dinner. So I get 2 birthdays a year. I feel so lucky.
oh, well, I'm so delighted to share your rebirth day with you. That's so great. So, Anita, I have always, for many, many years, when I first started hearing about people who had near-death experiences and had experiences of the truth of who they are and the experience of love and all of that, I've always said I want to have a near-death experience without having the near-death part, you know.
Yes.
So, how do people like the rest of us who've not had that experience of knowing that we are love? It's beautiful to hear it from you, and I believe it. But how do we experience it so we know it as deeply as you know it?
So first of all, what I would want people to know is that you were born knowing this. So, in other words, one of the things we have a tendency to do, and it's the way we're taught, it's the way we're brought up, when we think that there's something we need to change, we believe that there's something we need to go out and do and learn and add. And so we go and seek it out. In actuality, I'm going to invite people to do the opposite. The reason you don't feel this love for yourself is because you have been conditioned that it's not the case. You have actually added layers and layers of beliefs and trauma that have moved you away from who you truly are. So in other words, instead of adding more beliefs, trying to believe who you really are, which is love, I would say we need to undo. So instead of doing more, we need to undo what we have done. And I liken it to an analogy I use. You know, Michelangelo, the artist, who used to carve these beautiful statues of angels out of rocks. So these were rocks. Sometimes they were beautiful crystals or marbles, but out of just regular big boulder, he could carve out a beautiful statue of an angel. And people would ask him, how do you carve out this beautiful statue of an angel? You don't have any plans or any, any drawings. You just carve and there it is. And he says, the angel is already there. I just chip away until I set the angel free. In other words, he's chipping away at what is not part of the angel. And that's how we are. We don't see our beauty. We don't see our magic because we've added all these layers through our lifetime that has disguised who we really are. And then we think we have to work at changing and adding more and becoming something else. It isn't that. It's about going back to the beauty of what we were born with and who we were born as and who we were born to be. It's about uncovering who your soul or what your soul is.
I love that. I love the Michelangelo story, the David story. And it reminds me of a quote that I don't remember exactly, but it's a Rumi quote about how love is our essence and our only job, our only task is to remove the barriers to the experience of that.
Yes, it's about removing the barriers.
So, how do we remove those barriers? I mean, maybe before we get to that, because that really is kind of the key question, of course, I'd love for you to explain what is life like for you now? Because I believe the definition I have of living in the miracle zone is that place of knowing the truth of who you are, of knowing love, and from there all synchronicities flow. So maybe you could explain how your life is now living in the miracle zone, what that is for you. And then I want to know, how do we remove those barriers?
Okay, so living in this space now has its challenges. It's a bit of a dichotomy because people assume that I know I've had this experience, I know the truth, and so it must be easy for me. But here's the issue, no one else in the world aligns with you when you come back with this information. And so the world feels really wrong. It feels like you feel very misaligned with the outer reality. So what you're feeling inside is completely misaligned with what's happening outside. And so you can struggle with what is happening outside. I live in my own world and I have to be ready to and prepare myself to deal with this physical world, to deal with the people. So what it feels like is that it feels like I live in two worlds. There is, and I call it the world of love and the world of fear. And this is what I have to deal with every single day. And I need time to retreat into my world of love. That world of love is very, very real. But that world of love, which is the world, I call it the world of love, but it is also the world of spirit. It's the world where all my guides and my loved ones reside, the ones that I met when I had the near-death experience. They didn't go anywhere. They're still here. They're all still here. Your loved ones, your guides, they're all still here for you. But it is our disbelief, our skepticism, our reason to debunk these things. It is our culture, our paradigm's way of thinking that people who feel and see and hear something beyond this world are crazy and delusional. And so you're made to feel really dumb and woo-woo for being in that world. But that world is so real and so beautiful. And that is the world from where miracles happen. That is the world where when we can access it, we know that our bodies are miraculous, that we can heal. We know that our loved ones on the other side live on and we can continue to get messages from them. As a baby, we knew this. but we live in a culture that makes us feel that it's delusional to be part of that world. So that's one. So I live in two worlds. And then when I step into this physical world, it is fearful, it is noisy, people are driven by fear, they're driven by mainstream media, and they could change their life just like that. They really could. And I know they can. And it's frustrating to see people struggle. And it's really frustrating when you try to tell them in baby steps, it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way for you or anyone else. And when we try to teach even one person, a typical comeback can be anything from, oh, you're just being delusional. This is the real world. You have to live in the real world. You're burying your head in the sand. You're in denial of what's actually happening here. Those are common things you'll hear. But if everybody could see what really the real world was, we would all be living in this miraculous zone. We would all know that we're connected. We would all be spending more money on uplifting each other, feeding each other, helping each other, than money on creating weapons to kill each other and see each other as enemies. It would shift in a nanosecond. But we have this paradigm that leads us to believe that we are the ones that are crazy and delusional.
And, you know, this is why I find it so helpful. This is part of why I do your Year of Miracles, because we have a community of thousands and thousands of people who really believe this, who are committed to living in the truth of love. I agree with you. We have these two worlds here. So let's take a look at what are the baby steps that people can take to remove those barriers to experiencing that love.
So the baby steps would be, first of all, is to connect with this world of love, we have to start with uplifting and loving ourselves. We have to start with also realizing that we are much more than our physical bodies. We are actually made up of life force energy. This life force energy is informed by, so we are infinite beings. Basically, we can call it a soul or a spirit. The way I use the word soul and spirit, I call a spirit a disembodied being. So somebody who's not in the physical right now, but who is, in the other realm, I call them spirits. But somebody who is living right now, I call us souls. So our soul is the part of us that is infinite and has always lived and will always live. Our soul continues to inform us, but we have to listen. And the way that we listen to the soul and the way that our soul is able to inform us is when we get quiet, when we are able to uplift ourselves, and when we can particularly step out of the noise and the fear. So when you are entrenched in the news, the mainstream media, and you are living in fight or flight, and you are living in this space of fear, which is where I was living when I was getting sicker and sicker. And even the fear of the illness itself as it progresses actually separates you from the messages. And so when you are living in this space, it's harder to hear the messages. And so if I was, for example, I'm going to just jump straight into an example of, let's say someone is struggling with an illness. And I'm going to say, if it were up to me, and if this paradigm were different, if this paradigm were a paradigm that worked in the way that I see it from my own experience of how I healed, if it were up to me and somebody was dealing with an illness, I would never want them to believe that their illness is terminal. I would never want them to believe that this is the end stages, unless they wanted to cross over, unless they were done with life and wanted to cross over. But here is somebody, if somebody is struggling to heal their illness, the best way to help someone heal their illness is to relieve them from the fear of the illness. And it is to tell them that you can reverse it. So let's start by helping you to uplift your energy. And let's start step by step by coming up with ways that you can improve your well-being. And so I would start by giving them hope. I would start by telling them that let's get in touch with your soul. Let's figure out what your soul's purpose is for being here. Once you know your soul's purpose, you will start having more reason for waking up in the morning. I would help the person to get more excited about life. I would help the person to hold a vision for their future so that they know they have a purpose and a reason to live. And I would help them to come up with a wellness trajectory in every way, one that actually expands their energy. Our current paradigm, here's what we do. We tell the person, you have this terminal illness. These are the chances you have of surviving. There is no known cure. And the minute you do that, what you have done is you've diminished the person's energy. You've put them in a space of fear. And when they're in the space of fear, they're in fight or flight. And they have now blocked themselves or removed themselves from receiving those messages. So, what our current medical system does is the opposite of what we need to do when we're dealing with someone who has a fear of the illness that is in their body. We need to teach them that whatever is going on in your body is a message. It's not trying to kill you. It is a message. Let's tune in and listen to those messages. And I would start to help them to build up their self-love and their energy. So how do you build up your energy and your
Yes.
self-love?
And by the way, I really just appreciate so much what you said about knowing that there's a purpose for your soul on the planet and connecting with that purpose. And that would be for everybody, whether or not you are dealing with a physical healing challenge or not. That is for all of us to do.
Your purpose could be anything from being an amazing parent or even an amazing grandparent to anything from that to being a great teacher or changing the world. Whatever it is, every single one of us has a purpose and a reason for living. But I get that somebody might be in their 90s and they might have already lost all their family members and their friends, and they might be kind of like, I'm done. And that's fine too. They should be allowed to cross over with dignity.
I just want to say, my father, when he was the day after his 91st birthday, he woke up and he said, I'm done.
See?
And the doctor said this happens, and you can either force feed him or let him do his thing. And our family was all in agreement that we would let him do his thing. And it was the most exquisite love fest that we had for 10 days while he was leaving. It was his
Wow.
time. So I think that it is true that people do have, very much, they have their times. And as I said, I'm so glad your time was not then, and you're here to share with us, and especially about self-love. You are about to share with us how we can develop greater self-love.
So, yes, exactly. So, I'm going to give the term self-love like different definitions to help people to see what resonates best. And another definition I like to give people is that the more self-love you have, the more life force energy you have. And so the people who have the greatest amount of self-love actually have the strongest life force energy. So let's call it life force energy, because I've created an exercise which I give people. And I do this in my workshops. And and we do this as an exercise for an entire hour or two. It's an actual module in my workshop, but I'm going to give you a short version here
Wonderful.
that your audience can try out.
Great.
So I want you to think of life force energy as a currency. And so I think of it as, we could say life force energy or self-love. So let's say self-love is a currency. So let's say life force energy. And let's say you wake up in the morning after a good night's sleep. A good night's sleep gives you 12 units of life force energy. And I'm just appointing an arbitrary number to it. So you can appoint any number. You're giving a good night's sleep that makes you wake up, recharge with energy. We're giving it the currency of 12 units of energy. So now the thing is to observe your day. How do you spend your energy? Because your energy is a currency now. In other words, your self-love is actually a currency. And people who lack self-love have depleted their self-love, their currency, by not loving themselves, but by just giving it away and believing that it's selfish to love ourselves. So using life force energy as in the analogy, as the metaphor for self-love, makes it easier to put it into a context. So we wake up with 12 units of life force energy. And so how are you going to use these 12 units? So let's say you eat a horrible breakfast that's hard to digest, something filled with sugars and artificial flavors, and you eat that. And so your body is now trying to digest that. You go on a sugar high. You're using up an amount of life force energy to actually help your body process that. Like, let's say you need to use up at least 2 units of life force energy. And then you go off to a job which you hate, but you're doing it just because you need the money, but you hate the job. You don't like your boss is a bully, and you spend this day at this job you hate, and at the end of the day, you've lost 6 units of life force energy just by dealing with this boss that you really don't like, who's a bully. You head home, and so you are already down 8 units of life force energy. So you're down to 4. And because you're down to 4 units, and you're tired from your work, you're like super tired. And so you make a simple junk food dinner, or you pick up something along the way. Your body needs another 2 or 3 units to digest that. And then you go home and you see this pile of bills on your desk, and the bills may deplete your energy. And so you are at 0 life force energy now. And you go to bed and you don't sleep well. You're tossing and turning. And you wake up in the morning unrested with only, let's say, 7 units of life force energy. And now you're going through that day all over again. But that same day costs you 12 units of energy. So that night, you're going to bed with a deficit of 5 units of energy. So now I want you to imagine an opposite scenario. Imagine somebody who wakes up with 12 units of energy, and they eat a nice, healthy breakfast because they love their body, and they eat a nice, healthy breakfast. And so the healthy breakfast gives you 2 units of energy instead of takes away. So you're at 14 units. Now imagine that you go to a job you love. You love your job, and you go to this job where you get to do things like what you and I are doing, Marci, because I love what I do. I love talking about this. I love doing my events and workshops. And so the end of the day actually gives me another 6 units, because the people I talk to, they feed my energy too. So at the end, so I'm at 20 units at the end of the day. And so here I am at 20 units of energy. Even if I have to do something like pay bills and stuff, which is not my favorite thing to do, I have energy equity. So I can do that. And I have enough equity to even change my attitude about it and say, I'm so grateful to be doing something I love that allows me to pay these bills. And so, okay, maybe I don't like the bills. I lose 2 units of energy. So I'm down to 18, but I'll make a nice, healthy dinner, which will take me right back up to 20 or 22. Then I go to sleep. I feel good about the day. I wake up with another 12, and that takes me up to 32 units of energy. Day by day, you build energy equity. That equity is what I call self-love. And I want to say a couple of things about this. Anybody can start to build up energy equity if you start to realize that your life force energy and self-love are one and the same thing. And no matter how bad your life is right now, you can do things that start to build up energy equity bit by bit, just like how you can save money. It's the same as money, how you can build financial equity even from poverty. It's a shift in mindset. that, oh, somebody just has to teach you how to save money. I'm teaching you how to save your equity, because that energy equity automatically goes towards your self-love bank. And here's the second thing I want you to know is that if you live from this place of self-love, what happens is your energy is actually a much more valuable commodity than money. People are constantly telling me, oh, I can't quit my job because it would kill me if I did, because I won't have the money to put food on the table. I want to tell them that what you're doing is already killing you. I want to tell them that even in small ways, you can start to build up energy equity, even if it means spending time to meditate or play with your pet or your children or your grandchildren or listening to music or going for a walk. You can start to build it up. You can start to try and eat different foods. Um, and it doesn't mean you can never eat chocolate or pizza. When you have energy equity, you can actually pretty much do anything. You have the equity to take care of even special needs children or aging parents, or you have the equity to deal with grief. But you have to think of your energy or your self-love as a currency. And this currency is more valuable than money. We tend to prioritize money over self-love or energy. We need to prioritize it the other way, and you will see your life change.
Anita, that was exquisite. I can tell you, I got at least 10 units of energy equity just from listening to you, sharing all of this with us. And I love the way of positioning it as energy equity, because I can feel it. It makes so much sense. And I think that, you mentioned that what we eat either gives us energy or takes it away, energy equity. But as you said, even in the beginning of the call, when you were recounting your story, you would eat well, but you didn't. It was from fear. So it's the place that we come from as we're doing these things that is as important as the specific things that we're doing. Would you say that?
Yes. So you have to see that me eating those foods were actually depleting my energy, because I was eating it because I'm eating this because I don't want to cause cancer. And the focus is on the cancer, which is what was causing the energy depletion. I was in so much energy deficit. But you can have someone who is so joyful, so filled with self-love, at energy equity 100, they could eat pizza and it won't even impact them.
Yeah. Yeah.
They can drink wine and eat pizza. It's not even going to impact them.
So the last question I want to ask you, I mean, I could talk to you for days about all of this. This is my favorite topic, and your perspective is so beautiful. But the last question I want to ask you has to do with the energy of fear that is so prevalent in the world. And you spoke of that already, how it's a challenge. But in the midst of this, how do we keep our energy equity and live in this world? I mean, I assume that we limit the amount of time we're exposed to the things that drag us down. We
Yes.
also build up the time that we spend with the things that give us the energy equity. But there must be some way to bring that compassion, that love that we have to the world in a way that isn't going to deplete us as much.
Absolutely. So what I have found is that we have this belief that if we put ourselves first, it's selfish. Here's the thing. I realize that doesn't apply to everybody. And this is going to be a little bit of a convoluted answer, and I'm going to say I'm not trying to plug my book, but I explain this in great detail in my book, Sensitive is the New Strong. And in this book, I actually explain that people who are empaths, people who are sensitive, people like that, we need to put ourselves first and realize that it is not selfish. So I talk about it as being a spectrum. People who are sensitive, people who are empaths, people who want to help other people, who want to change the world for a better place, people who've had spiritual experiences. We're on one end of a spectrum. But you have this spectrum where most people are somewhere in the middle, but you have people on the other end of the spectrum who do not think of everyone else, who really do want power and over everyone else, who really do want to rule the world in a way that serves them and not everyone else, who really do want to have all the money at the expense of everyone else. So we have built a world where those voices on the other end of the spectrum are the loudest. And so we look at them and we see them as selfish, and we don't want to be like them. And so we don't allow ourselves to put ourselves first. But what I actually tell people, that if you are someone who relates to being an empath, and I have an empath quiz to do this.
And I know we have a lot of empaths listening. I would say the majority of people here are empaths.
I would agree, because empaths and sensitive people are the people who are attracted to work like yours and mine. In fact, the people who need to know that it's selfish to put yourself first are not the ones who are listening to you and me.
Right.
And so the wrong people are getting the message that it's selfish to put yourself first. I want empaths to actually be strong and powerful, because you know why? An empath is not able to see other people suffer because they suffer just by seeing other people suffer. So if you have an empath who is strong and powerful and wealthy, you know what they're going to do? They're going to use all their resources to make the world a better place. So I would say, if you relate to being an empath and a sensitive person, and you're someone who wants to make the world a better place, you have to take care of yourself first, because the world needs you. And the stronger you are and the more powerful your energy, all you're going to do with that excess energy or excess wealth or excess anything is to help the world, because that's just who you are.
Wow. That is such a great explanation. I've never heard it said that way. And that is such just a great way of seeing this. And I think probably everybody here can relate to this. So thank you. Thank you for that. And say the name of the book again.
Sensitive is the New Strong. And
fantastic.
Thank you. And in that book, Sensitive is the New Strong, in that book, I encourage people to start realizing that empathy and sensitivity are strengths. And only once we start assigning these definitions and these metrics to the word strong and powerful, we start saying strong and powerful people are empathic and they're sensitive and compassionate. Only when we start seeing the world that way can we change the world. Because unfortunately, right now, we see ruthlessness, aggression, competitiveness as strengths. And these are the kind of people we put in our leadership positions. And we see compassionate people, sensitive people, empathic people. We see them as weak, and we see those traits as weaknesses. That's why we have the situation we have in the world right now, where the miracles that you and I recognize, the connection with the other side, all these are being minimized for that reason.
And I believe we are here for these times. And if we're hearing this, it is because it is our time to be stepping up and taking that perspective and taking that stand for what we know to be true: self-love, living in the miracle zone, living in this particular way, that being an empath is a strength, and putting yourself first is where you've got to start. So Anita, I love every word of this, and the feeling of being here with you today too. So I'm so grateful. I'm going to share with people how they can find you. Of course, this will be the notes as well, but you can go to anitamoorjani.com.
Yes.
And you also, Anita, you've got a new sanctuary membership platform where members can access all of your teachings. They can access the live events and all of your exclusive masterclasses and the whole vibrant community, all from home. And I know for that, you can go to amsanctuary.com. Is there anything you want to share about that?
So in the sanctuary, we have a lot of deeper learning. We have my courses and tons of videos. And I also have a lot of what I call journeys, deep journeys, where I take people on journeys to experience their own, I'm going to say, simulated mini near-death experiences so that you can get your own answers to your own questions, so you can actually expand your own life force energy in the way that is unique to you without having to go through the noise and listen to all the noises of the world.
Well, I am going there for that because, as I said in the very beginning, I want to have the benefit of a near death experience without having to go through it. And I'm so grateful that you're offering that. So I'm going to go to, and everybody go to amsanctuary.com to find out more about that. So, Anita,
Thank you.
I'm going to close with a quote from you. But before I do that, are there any last minute words you'd like to share with us?
I would just want people to know that the most important thing you can do for yourself is to find what makes you happy. Find your joy, laugh, find community that uplifts you. The more that you feel uplifted, the more your very presence is uplifting the world and those around you, because we are connected. Our energies are connected. And the reason why many people are feeling fear is because that is what is being spread in the world right now, because people are fearful. You can help by not buying into the fear and do what it takes to find joy and happiness in everything that you do and everything you are.
Mm, so beautiful. And thank you so much for your beautiful heart and your very powerful message. And I love getting to be with you. So we'll have to do some more yoga classes together.
Yes, I would love that.
Okay. Well, I always love to end with a quote from the person that I'm speaking with. And so here's one from Anita that I think is very powerful. We don't realize that we are actually perfect just the way we are. We are born perfect, but we spend a lifetime trying to be something we are not, and then we feel inadequate for failing. Your only purpose is to be yourself. Otherwise, you will deprive the universe of who you came here to be. So thank you for that, Anita. And I want to thank everyone for listening today. I hope that you are feeling inspired and uplifted and more in the miracle zone after our time together. And of course, if you enjoyed this episode, please share the Miracle Zone love with your friends and family. If you're ready to live more in the miracle zone, you can take our free 2-minute quiz to find out what your miracle superpower is. You just go to miraclezonequiz.com. And remember that your life of miracles is waiting for you. It is your birthright. And simply by listening to this today, you are taking a step forward into the miracle zone. So enjoy, and I send you my love.